Born in Mexico, and she's been a storyteller since birth. And she polished her English skills on a pig farm in Minnesota while she was an exchange student. She's going to tell you many more interesting things about her life than I possibly can. I think you'll really enjoy her story. She lives in Los Angeles with her 2 children, and they are 17 and 18, and so if you think finding time to get your job done is difficult, you can imagine the difficulties that she has trying to find time to write. She teaches fiction writing through the UCLA Extension Program, and she serves as an advisor at the Sundance and Latino Screenwriters Labs. She's been publishing since 1973 in a variety of genres, including short stories, screenplays, and full-length novels. Her first novel, Esperanza's Box of Saints, and its Spanish version, Santitos, was written in 1999. It was a #1 bestseller on the Los Angeles Times bestseller list. It's translated into 21 languages and is being read in more than 85 countries. The movie based on the screenplay is also critically acclaimed. It was the 3rd highest grossing Spanish language film in Mexico in 1999. And it's received awards at 14 film festivals, including the Latin American Jury Award at the prestigious Sundance Film Festival. Her latest novel, Gonzalez and Daughter Trucking Company, you might know a little about. It's a wonderful book, and I think we've all enjoyed discussing it over the past month. It's currently being translated into Polish and Turkish, and it was recently awarded the Book of the Year prize in Spain, which is quite an honor. It's critically acclaimed throughout the U.S. and Deschutes County. So, like any talented writer, it's not just Maria's hard work or her facility with words in Spanish and English that set Maria apart. Her biggest gifts, I believe, are her humor and her keen insight into humanity that surpasses all language barriers. It's my great honor tonight to introduce this year's novel idea author, Maria Amparo Escandon.
Wow, I can't see anything. Hi there. Thank you so much for coming. I want to, first of all, thank the Deschutes Public Library Foundation and all the sponsors. And they've been thanked, and I want to thank them myself. But most of all, I want to thank you, because you are my better half. I could not exist as a writer if it weren't for you, the reader, and to me is really the only purpose, for me to be a writer is to share my stories with you. So I was wondering if it's okay. I want to take a picture of you. Is that okay? Say hello. Oh, beautiful. Not this side, because it's... Oh, okay. Hi there, up there. Thank you. Okay, so now when you email me and tell me what you want, whatever you want to tell me, you can say, I was on the 3rd row, I was wearing the red shirt, and then I'll know who you are. I'm going to try to remember everything I said yesterday, so I can say the same thing, but because I don't have a script, so maybe you will hear things that maybe I didn't say yesterday and the other way. But to start off, I think I'm going to move the this a little bit this way. Okay. See, the podium is like, it's like, like, in the bullfights when the bullfighter goes behind the thing and, not good. Anyway, so I think I'm better off, speaking to you like that. So thank you so much. I'm delighted to be a part of the Novel Idea program. I never heard about it before. All of a sudden I get this email, we're trying to contact you. And I was like, oh, okay. And I started learning about this program, and I got so fascinated. I thought it was an incredible thing because, I'm sure there are many writers in this theater tonight, and I'm sure that you all share this idea with me that the best thing that can happen to a writer is to hop on a bus and all the people in the bus are reading your novel. And I've had dreams about this. And, like everybody's like, ooh, And so this is coming pretty close to that. And I have to pinch myself, to me, it's the most incredible thing that's ever happened, more than the other things that were said about my work and about, the different things that have happened with my books, has been the possibility of sharing one book with one community at the same time. It's unheard of, it's incredible. And I congratulate you for participating and for being a part of this phenomenon, because it's just amazing. And I hope you perpetuate it and continue it every year, because it's just great. So, yes. This goes for a novel idea. So I want to tell you a little bit about my life, because, well, you read the book, but what's behind the book? You kind of want to hear the juicy stuff. So here it goes. Usually writers, we have very boring lives because, we're always like sitting at a desk and typing away, and the world is happening outside, and we're just, developing characters and stuff. But that is the idea. That's the image. But in truth, we have just as interesting lives as everybody else, and we have a lot of stuff going on. We have teenagers and, well, I have two. So anyway, so I want to tell you a little bit about my upbringing and all that, and what led me to make such a decision as to become a writer, which for some of my aunts is totally unexplainable. Why did she have to do that? I mean, there's just so many other things in life. Maria, you're such a bohemian. That's my Aunt Carmen. Okay, so I was born and raised in Mexico City, and I promise I'm not going to do that again. There's 22 million people in that city, so I don't think they need one more person there. But that's where I was born and raised, and it's a crazy city. We're always bumping each other, all the time, because it's a small city. It's really small. It's surrounded by mountains. It's like a basin, so all the smog stays there and simmers. And everything is close together. And the subway moves 5 million people every day. We call it massage and sauna for 1 peso. Gets pretty cozy there, but So when I finished college, well, that's a big step. Okay, I'll backtrack a little bit. When I was little, I was maybe 7 years old. My grandma detected that I told many stories, but that I never really gave the disclaimer that they were made up. So technically, they were lies. But I didn't know that. So I would just come up and say things like, I have a twin sister. And people would believe me, and I was fine with that, So one day, and this I don't remember, I was told later. One day, I came to my mom and I said, "Look, Mommy, look my arm. My nanny pinched me." And I had like this purple thing on my arm, and my mom was like so furious, and she fired my nanny on the spot. And this was a single mother of 7, and who really needed the job. And I really liked her, but the afternoon was kind of developing in a very boring way, and I just had to, put a little pimienta, a little pepper, and so I came up with this fun thing, but I never expected the results and the consequences, and when I saw her leave in tears, and my mom was so furious, I realized what I had done, and I said, "I'm sorry, Mommy, it's really the immunization." But of course it was too late, and I felt really bad. And then my grandma, who was very smart, she pulled me aside and she said, "Look, stories and lies are the same thing. The only difference is the intention. If you're trying to trick people into believing what you're saying, then it's a lie and you can hurt people. But if they're in the know that what you're saying is made up, then it's entertaining and it's fun." And I kind of figured out, I said, okay, so if I tell stories, it's like if I had permission to lie. But, it was kind of like, I don't know whatever happened in my 7-year-old brain, but my grandma gave me a notebook, and she said, "Why don't you write all your stories here?" And so I did. So I took my notebook to school, and I wrote, in math class mostly, all the stories that I thought about, and that's how I learned to write on company time. Of course, as time went by, the school year ended, and I knew nothing about whatever happened in class, and so I had to flunk 2nd grade. And my mom was really angry, and the nuns were really angry, and the Catholic school, and everybody was angry, but I wasn't. I was okay. I was fine, because the day I started the back to school, go back into 2nd grade, and I had a whole new group of readers. So that was good. Life was good. And it sort of went on and on every time, and I remember that, I don't know, I had the film bug in me since then, because I remember that one day I got kicked out of the class because I was minding my own business, AKA writing, and I didn't pay attention, so I got kicked out of the class, so I had to wait outside the classroom. Now this was, the school had windows like this, and they were painted so that the kids wouldn't look out in the yard and get distracted with what was going on outside. So I went outside and I scratched off the paint, a little square on the window. And then in my notebook, I drew a sequence of little stick people doing a little story, like the little boy coming home with the dog and all that stuff, and then I ripped it. And then I knock on the window, all my friends turn around, and I pass the film. I did a little film of. So that was my first film. The teacher never really knew what was going on, but I think I did it several times, and they became really popular. Had there been a kids' school Oscars, I would have probably won one. So that kind of went on all throughout my school years, and then when I was about 16, I read 100 Years of Solitude. Anybody read 100 Years of Solitude? Great book. Anyway, I read it, and when I closed it, I said, I want to do this. I want to be a writer. I want to be a professional writer. I want to make a living out of this. And it's been a long road, very long. But I joined a workshop, and I started getting my short stories published in Spanish in Mexico. And then one day, I moved to the States with my boyfriend. Now, I'm sure you've heard a lot of immigrant stories, you know, very poor, uneducated people who run across the border or swim or jump, you know, very athletic, everybody. And they all cross the border, and they come and, you know, to fulfill the American dream and work 3 jobs and finally buy themselves a TV and a car and about 6 different kinds of cereal. And that's not my case. I'm not athletic, and I didn't come to buy a TV, a car, and 6 kinds of cereal. I actually eloped with my boyfriend, because in Mexico you cannot live with your boyfriend. It's not a good idea. And we wanted to live together, and so we sort of were running from my previous relationship, and so we decided we should go to Los Angeles, because, you know, we like Disneyland, and so we decided, well, you know, let's go to LA, and then we can go to Disneyland, and sure. So we went to Disneyland many times, and one day, here's the thing. We wanted to stay, so we had to, you know, get all those paperwork things ready, and this was back in the 80s, so it was a lot easier then. So we hired a lawyer to help us with all the immigration paperwork, and we got the paperwork eventually, and it worked out. But we started a business, an ad agency, and because we had no money, a friend of my then, now we had been married, so husband, had a small theater in downtown LA. You know, one of those places that later became a church? And then a swap meet. And it had all the graffiti walls on the front. And he let us live there. And he said, well, you know, you can live upstairs. There's a little room next to the projector, and you can help yourselves to the concession stand. And so for maybe 8 months, my diet consisted of popcorn, M&Ms with peanuts, hot tamales, junior mints, and what's that little red string chewy that tastes like rubber band? That too. And so we lived there, and we had our advertising agency, which was a borrowed desk, a borrowed phone, and 2 borrowed chairs. And that was the business. And it took off eventually, and we have made a living out of that. But I always kept writing, always kept writing. But once we had been to Disneyland enough times, there is such a thing. There's a moment, I don't know if you've lived that moment, there's a moment when you're standing on Main Street and you look at Mickey Mouse and you say, I've been here enough. It's enough. And that moment came. And when that moment came, I decided that I was going to start writing in English because I was not a tourist anymore. I was an immigrant, and it's very different. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to start writing in English, but I'm going to start from scratch because I've never written in English. So I joined a workshop, a class at UCLA Extension. This was a beginner class. And here's what happened. I get to the class and everybody's English speaking, even the teacher. And the first assignment is, I want you to write for next week, bring a piece about a haunting experience. Okay, so I went home and I said, okay, this is a tough assignment because I don't like hunting. I hate people when they kill animals. I don't have a hunting experience. So I got to work. I said, oh, I want to make one up, So I wrote about this little girl, 10-year-old girl, who goes on a hunting trip with her dad in the Mexican jungle, and they have a guide who takes his machete and chops off the woods and the forest so they can walk through in a path. And they walk for 3 days, and then one morning the guide puts his hand on a tree, and a big old snake bites him in the hand. So the guide takes the machete and chops off his own hand, and of course they go back. The girl is in charge of scaring off the flies off the stump. And of course, she picks up the hand and puts it in her little patent leather purse and takes it back home. Years later, the girl sees the guide without his hand and runs home and brings a big jar where the hand is filled with tequila. And she gives him back his hand, and she says, here is your hand back, because I know that without your hand, you could never be a guide in the jungle. And the guide says, why? And she says, because I heard my father say that you knew the jungle like the back of your hand. So this is the map of the jungle. Anyway, so that's the story that I wrote. So I come to my class the next week, very proud of my assignment. And I get there, and all the students start reading stories about ghosts and spirits and zombies and haunted mansions. And I realized I did the wrong assignment. My first assignment ever, and I did the wrong assignment. So when my turn came, I said, I'm sorry, I can't read my assignment because it's the wrong assignment. And the teacher, who was very nurturing to us beginner writers, said, please read your assignment, it's okay. So I went ahead and read it. And thank God she thought it was pretty haunting anyway. And, and I passed. So if she hadn't been nurturing that day, my career might have ended right there. So I thank her. Thank you, Mrs. Roberts. Thank you so much for being so nice and letting me present that wrong assignment. So anyway, then she gave me, the courage to continue writing in English, and I wrote many short stories, and I got them all published in different journals and publications, and I was very excited about it. I'm just producing and producing. My kids were real little. They were like 3, 4 years old, running around, and I don't know how I was able to write, but I managed to do it. And eventually, one day I said, well, enough of making houses. Now I'm going to build a cathedral. And And to double the challenge, I'm going to write it in English. And to make it even more difficult, I'm going to tackle the subject of the loss of a child. And to make it even harder, I'm going to make it a comedy. And so that's how Esperanza's Box of Saints eventually was finished. And I had to say, writing it in English first was one of the dumbest things I've ever done. It was such a struggle. I really suffered. But in the end, it had its advantages because I improved my vocabulary a lot. It was very helpful because I learned, I would write with the thesaurus and the dictionary, and I was calling my friends, please tell me, how do you say this word? And I would learn the word. So it was really good in terms of crash course in English. If you're learning another language, I recommend you write a novel in that language because it definitely helps with the vocabulary and all that stuff. The only thing I had trouble with, and I still do, and I don't know if you do, because it's natural for the English speaker, but in my case, I had a lot of hard time with words like, you would think the long words are difficult. No. On, in, at, all those words, the shortest words ever, are the most difficult for me. I have a really hard time. So I talked to my editor, and I said, please help me, I can't figure it out. And she says, it's very easy. The pen is in the drawer. The pen is on the desk. I said, oh, that's easy. I just, take it to other situations and no problem. And then I asked her, so tell me something, why do you say that you're on the plane if you're not sitting on the wing? She couldn't answer, but that sort of goes to show you the kind of complications a non-English speaker finds when they confront the language. I love the language, I love the English language, to me it's fascinating, but of course it has its challenges. Okay, so anyway, I want to tell you a little bit about Gonzalez and Daughter Trucking Company because I know that many of you have read it, and I feel a special connection with each one of you because I know we have shared a story, and a story that I wrote and the story that you read may be very different, but we have made a connection. And so I want to tell you a little bit about it so that we can start maybe a Q&A part. I want to open the room for questions because I'm very interested in hearing your questions and being able to have a conversation. I think it's a lot easier than just staring at the glaring lights here. Anyway, I started this story well, in my case, stories take a long time to cook. It's kind of like, those crock pots that just put the stuff all in there and let it cook overnight. Well, I have a similar process. The stories begin years ago, and they sort of develop with time. And this story goes back to when my dad had a few trucks. He had a small fleet, maybe 3 trucks, I don't remember. And I was maybe 5 years old. And my brothers would they loved going to the yard and hopping on that huge truck and honking the horn and going for rides with the drivers. They'd sit on their laps and they'd take them on this big ride. And I was never allowed to go, because I was a girl, and girls were supposed to stay home and play with their Barbie dolls. And I was so angry at my Barbie dolls that I took my Barbie doll once and I made her like this mohawk hairdo, I cut it up. She was the first punk, I guess, ever to roam the earth, because, she had like this, but I was very disappointed, and I always felt left out. And that feeling stayed with me. And eventually, over the years, when I was an adult, and I was in Los Angeles, and I was driving on the freeway, and it was a bumper-to-bumper traffic, very unusual. You almost never are in that kind of situation, so it was very strange, to be driving 10 miles an hour in the freeway, but there I was, and right next to me there was this big old truck, and on the door it said, McAndrew and Sons Trucking. And I thought, where are the daughters? All these businesses, they're always Smith and Sons Mortuary or bakery, or, they're always the sons. And the daughters, where are the daughters? And so I thought, you know what? All these feelings that I've been putting away in the back of my heart for so many years, here they are, and I am a woman, I am a daughter, and here is a truck, and now nobody's going to say that I can't ride on the truck. So I said, okay, I'm going to get on a truck. And so I contacted a truck driver and asked him to ride shotgun with him, and I started my research and eventually named the story Gonzalez and Daughter Trucking, because I really wanted to explore the father-daughter relationship, and to me that was the ideal setting, a small cab where father and daughter cohabit 24/7 until something gives. And of course it does, otherwise there's no novel. And so that's what I did, and I spent a year riding with truckers and eating their food, and helping change tires and chain up for the snow, and talk on the CB radio and avoid the police and the scale, all kinds of stuff, and it was great. It was a lot of fun, and I think that's the part I enjoyed most of my whole research, writing with the truckers. I also went to the prisons, and that's a whole other story, a whole other aspect of my research. I wanted to also create a confined space where women would cohabit 24/7 and have a lot of stuff go on, because I wanted to also explore the relationship among women. And so that's how the prison came to be. I said, well, what would be a good setting? First I thought, maybe boarding school, nah. What about a convent? So I figured something in between, a prison. And that's how the prison came to be. And so I wrote the novel, and here I am. So before we start the Q&A, I want to ask you two favors. One of them, take down my email address, maria@mariaescandon.com. Very creative. Very ingenious, no? Like my son's is Sharp Monkey, and my daughter's is That Rhymes, and mine is Maria Escandon. Anyway, so if you'd like to email me, I'll be very happy to correspond with you, and you can tell me your ideas or thoughts or questions about the novel. I'd like to keep in touch. This is something that I am very interested in, because when I read 100 Years of Solitude, I closed the book and I looked around and I said, where is he? where is this guy? I want to kiss his feet. And I'm still waiting to kiss his feet because I've never met him. And I think that a wonderful thing about the internet and about all these venues and events is that the readers and the writers get together and get to interact, and that's a fantastic thing that I never had as a reader, and I still, have a hard time approaching my favorite writers. So I would like to make myself available to you and be able to correspond. That's one thing. The other thing is, if you liked the novel, you can maybe post a comment in Amazon. That really helps. The editors read that all the time. And you may want to recommend the book to your friends. And if you didn't like it, don't bother posting anything on the internet, okay? But do recommend the book to your enemies. And that's all. And I want to thank you, and I want to open the room for Q&A, and let's have a chat. Okay? Thank you.
We'll open the room up for questions.